Well, hi everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Cosmic Conversations. I'm your co-host Phil Gruber, along with Matt Anderson. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Matt's in. Where are you, Matt? You're in. I heard you're in Italy. From you.
I am in Italy, yes.
Yeah. We got another one coming in. Okay. Um, so great. Well, we'll catch up with you in a minute, but this next hour belongs to my great, wonderful, beautiful, amazing friend, Carol Talbot. And although I don't usually like reading, I could probably wing this. But this is what Carol sent us, and I think it's I should read this. Okay? Dr. Carol Talbot. She's a visionary leader in human potential. I can vouch for everything that's written here. Dr. Carol Talbot is a visionary leader in human potential, consciousness studies, and quantum science. She holds a PhD in quantum morphogenetic physics. She bridges wisdom with cutting edge research to awaken the next evolution of intelligence. Multi-dimensional intelligence, TM. You need to have a little TM there, probably, right? A, a keynote, well, she'll tell you a lot about multi-dimensional intelligence in probably a few minutes. She's a keynote speaker, best-selling author, facilitator, mentor to thought leaders worldwide. She's known for her ability to ignite transformation through powerful insights and experiential practices. She's the founder of the Possibility Hub. She's devoted to helping individuals activate their higher blueprint, align with their true nature, live from a space of sovereignty, coherence, and conscious creation. Welcome, Carol, to Cosmic Conversations. But before we begin, we're going to have Susie kick us off. It's tradition with a song. Ready, Suze?
I wrote this a while back. Come together, all broken hearted, all you. We cry for the new day. We sing together, we sing to nations. We will not be silent, but say, the sands of time are running through our hands, taking many going down. Wave goodbye, for it will not be long, could be our last time around. Weep and wail as we retell the tale of our world. It's sick and it's dying. Woe to you, for our time is through. Can you hear the hearts that are crying? Like the dawn that has shined upon a discouraged land that is weary, the love shines forth through the open door that the humble heart can see clearly. Sands of time are running through our hands, taking many going down. We wave goodbye, for it will not be long, could be our last time around. Oh, hope we hold, our hearts are bold to expand the place of our dwelling. We shake the dust, for we know we must not delay, the vision is compelling. The sands of time are running through our hands, taking many going down. We wave goodbye, for it won't be long, could be our last time around. Thank you.
Thanks, Suze. That was lovely. All right, Carol. So where would you like to kick this off? I have some ideas, but where do you think you'd like to to start the conversation today?
No, no, I leave it to you, Phil, because as I was saying before we started recording today, it's often the other way round. I'm interviewing you.
Okay.
So I shall hand it back to you and just be an open book here. And by the way, Susie, that was absolutely beautiful. It's very early in the morning here, so I didn't have time to do kind of like my just settle in this morning. So that was a beautiful way to settle into this conversation. Thank you so much.
I
Thank
think
you,
maybe a
honey.
good way to
Beautiful.
kick it off is I received from Carol recently a multidimensional scan, and I'm not. I don't know whether I like to think that I'm at the same time easily impressed, but not so easily impressed. But that all went out the window. I was totally blown away by this multidimensional scan. I mean, it just really hit home on so many levels. It was almost like reading, it's like reading my life. It was just, I've had a few, usually I shy away from readings and scans and all that kind of stuff. But this one really just hit home. I had chills reading it. It was very impressive. So please tell us about this I know we were going to get to it eventually, but I think it's a good place to start off with explain to people what this multidimensional scan that you do entails. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for kicking off there because whenever I think of the multidimensional field scans, I'm like a kid in a candy store because to me they are so exciting. So let me just backtrack a little because obviously, with my years of research in quantum morphogenetic physics, which sounds complicated, but in simple terms, it's understanding our true cosmic history, understanding our multidimensional nature and also how conscious and energy impacts our physical reality or the perception of our physical reality. And more importantly, how our thoughts, our behavior, our emotions also impact our DNA. And of course, our DNA is multidimensional. And right now, it's severely distorted by toxins in our food, through the way that we live, and also it's distressed because of much of the food that we eat, which, if you think about it, it's hard push to call some of it food, but everything is about eat, eat, eat. So we're not remembering who we truly are because think of your DNA like a dimmer switch turned down to the faintest glow. So we're not receiving the stream of consciousness that we should. So one of the ways I like to explain that is if you think of DNA like a film strip, and if light hits a film strip and there's scratches and glitches on the film strip, then what's projected onto the screen is going to be glitchy. It's not going to be a clear film. And so it is when consciousness hits your DNA, what's projected in your outer reality has a lot of distortions in, which could be emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual as well. There's trauma in our life, there's upsets, dis-ease, all sorts of things going on in our life. And as I said, the most important thing here is we don't remember who we are from a multidimensional perspective. So part of my work, particularly with my PhD studies, which was my thesis was bioregenesis of the human DNA blueprint through source feeding. Source feeding is the breatharian path, also called pranic living. It's finding an alternative way to nourish yourself and repair the DNA. And so my previous book, Phil, you know it well because you wrote the afterword to it, talks a lot about different ways of nourishing yourself and repairing your DNA. My latest book, which is about to be released on multidimensional intelligence, takes things a little bit further. So the book is coded. When you read it, people have experiences, people feel something when they read the book. So it's coded in specific ways. But as a result of writing that book, new gifts have started to open up for me. And one of those most exciting gifts is the ability to do the multi-dimensional field scans. Now, they are not a clairvoyant reading. It's not like going to a tarot reading or any of those kind of sessions. And Phil knows me well. Trust me, I have chased and wanted to activate those senses for so long. And in a way, it's been great because it's allowed me to meet all sorts of incredible people, incredible mentors in that quest to what allows you to activate those higher senses. However, my sense has always been a sense of knowing, that sense of discernment, whether something's on or off. So the multidimensional field scans are like a mirror. I mirror that which is in your field. And it comes from a very neutral place. So basically, it's not done live. I do not have the ability to do live yet, although, as I shared with you, my sense of discernment is very strong, very high. I do pick up a lot of information now. So people fill in a form, send in certain information. And I've tested this with people I know and people I don't know and I have no knowledge about, because it's really important that none of my own perception bleeds into that field scan. And then I go into a particular state, and it's like it comes through encoding. And then I decode that and put it in a sort of 8 to 10 page report. And they've been phenomenal. The report covers about 15, 16 different areas. I wrote down some of the areas here, actually, just to remember. There's your energetic and consciousness profile. A lot of people want their life purpose, and I'm a great believer that, life purpose, we may have an overarching theme from the soul perspective or the oversoul avatar rishi perspective. How do we bring that into what we do every single day? And sometimes our purpose shifts and changes. What we were doing 10 years ago is probably very different from what we're doing now. So it can help on giving you alignment on direction. Where I also do the chakras, because as we know, they're the energy centers of the body. I do the 12 chakra model and look at the percentages. DNA strand activation, because if DNA is multidimensional and different dimensions open you up to a different level of information, then that's like opening a bigger book, a much bigger book. I think David Lynch, the film producer, always described that really well. He said if you had golf ball size thinking, when you read the book, then you have golf ball size understanding. When you wake up in the morning, golf ball size wakefulness and awareness. But if you can expand that golf ball to maybe the size of a beach ball or a football or the size of a globe, then when you read the book, more understanding. When you wake up in the morning, more wakefulness. So the purpose of these scans is really just to ensure that you start to remember who you are. So often when people read the scans, there's a sort of like remembrance. And as you remember, that's an activation in its own right, because you've seen your potential. There's also timeline options. So some people don't feel they're living from their optimal timeline. So again, there's the timeline that you're actually on, and then there's the timeline trajectory that you could be on. So that's also a really interesting point. We look at karmic loops, karmic patterns. I've also found with some people, if it's a mirror, that there's a lot of what I call static there, mental static. And I think we all know a lot of people and us sometimes are stuck in our heads. So it's like, wading through the fluff in there and also seeing what those mental loops are. Something new that's also come on stream is to catch those limiting beliefs, which are linked to those mental loops, and also discover where they are stuck in the body, because that means that you can do some body work to start releasing them. And interestingly enough, I had one client, and this shows you how important the frequency of your name is. Um, I'd done her multidimensional field scan and I had a couple of extra questions. Now, I know her, but not very well. So, one, I saw that there was IVF scarring, and I wasn't sure. She only had one child. I wasn't sure if that was through IVF, and she confirmed that it was. So, it even picked up the scarring, the imprint that's left from IVF. But one of the other things that came up was, and she shared with me, because she had thyroid and Hashimoto's. And when she was 9 years old, her grandmother had died. So she had been born and gifted a particular name. And then when her grandmother died, they changed her name. So it's almost like she was given her grandmother's identity. 2 years later, she developed thyroid and Hashimoto's disease. So I found that really interesting. What I also found out was, because I also checked in a little deeper, if it was reversible, because was it stuck in the morphogenetic field and really stuck into at the cellular level? Now it is, however, it will take some time and it will take some work, and that's up to her. That's up to her whether she does it. Now, going also into the mental clutter and mental fluff that people have, with one particular client, and he was in the sort of early scans that I was doing in the test phase. He wanted more clarity on life purpose and what to do next. And every time I went in, remember, I can only mirror that which is in your field. And in the report, I put in none of my own perception, nothing, if I know the person. And as I said, this is where I've tested for people that I have no knowledge, I don't know anything about them. And just an aside there, with one friend, when I looked at what was written, I thought, oh, that doesn't seem like the person I know. And then I kind of immediately went down and went, no, that's my perception of her, switch it off. So I sent it as it was, and it really resonated with her. It activates. So going back to this person who had a lot of mental clutter, I couldn't get clarity for him because there was all that fluff there. So what I decided to do was assume that he had already entered his optimal timeline. And I mirrored his field from 6 months down the line when he was already in that optimal timeline. And I mirrored 12 months down the line. And then I brought that back. And that gave him clarity. Now, I also have to be really careful because we have choice points, and not to take those choice points away from people. So the other thing that's really important for me with these field scans is permission. So you can imagine that being like a kid in a candy store, it's like, oh, I'll have a look in there, I'll have a look in there. And it's a no-no. With my brother, who tends to, we're branches off the same tree, but we definitely go in different directions. I really wanted to look in a way to support him. And I wasn't sure how this kind of information or experience would land with him. And he did give me permission. Now, I don't know how deeply he's read that report. He hasn't said very much about it. So that's one of I think when we work in this field, we need to be very ethical. We need to be very clear and clean in terms of what we do. And we're all about wanting to support and help people. And as I said, these multidimensional field scans also give the embodiment level. They give a message from your higher self to self. They're just, Phil, they're just phenomenal. I've been doing them for quite some time now. The feedback I get from people is just, it warms my heart, but it excites me. So these are the activations. The book is the coding, and the multidimensional field scans are my gift into the world. They're phenomenal.
Yeah, it's not a traditional session. I mean, you use
No,
it's and it's really amazing that you respect their sovereignty, because I know you're very, very big about restoring sovereignty and not violating people's free will. There's a lot of that around, whether it's conscious or unconscious. There seems to be a lot of this violation in doing readings, people looking where they're not having been given permission. Sometimes the permission is implied, I know, but a lot of the time I understand that you permission really has to be given, and certain people can only give, they maybe don't know themselves well enough to even have the cognizance or the coherence to give that kind of permission. So sometimes we have to assume sometimes that maybe we have permission when it hasn't been voiced, because I know you're very, very big on that. A lot of us are, on preserving sovereignty.
Well, I think it also comes round to we live very much in a culture where if people have issues, it's like they come to somebody or a healer to do something to them. And I'm very blessed that every single modality that I've ever worked with, ever studied, it's always do with, not do to. And so I'm very, like you said, very much into handing back people's sovereignty and getting them on what I call the cause side of the equation, because the longer that you're blaming others or on the effect or victim side of the equation, you've given away your power. And we have enormous brilliance, enormous power, yet a lot of the time we cannot see the wires that are tripping us up. You know, it's like we're in a dark warehouse and we keep falling over the same wires. And I always say when people come for mentoring or when I'm working with people, it's like they have a torch and they're in a dark warehouse. And all you can see is what you're shining your torch on, which in most people's case is the issue or the problem that they're facing at that time. And our role really is to hold the torch with them and shine it in different areas of that warehouse, light up other areas of the warehouse so that they can see that there's other possibilities. Literally to take people beyond the boundaries of who they believe themselves to be, open up to new possibilities. And those possibilities, those answers are not often in this physical reality. When you can clean up the distortions and bring in more of who you are, allow more of that stream of consciousness come in, then you're opening up to wisdom that's on the soul level, the oversoul level, the avatar, the rishi, the bodhaya. You remember your connection to source.
Yeah, your journey really has been, it's been an unfolding. When we first met, you were doing a lot of the fire walks. You always, each stage of this journey, you set the foundation for the next step. And then it was revealed to you where to go next. It really is a great story. And I think it's a great example for people, you know, that it will come if you stay open to what that next step is. And that's why I think these scans, what they reveal, you know, everything made sense to me. Even the things that there were things, yes, that I already knew, but there were things that I didn't know or that I wasn't attuned to myself, and it made me aware. And I know it was true. Even though I couldn't, it hadn't come up in my conscious mind, it felt on a real feeling level that this was who I am, and I was really getting very, very specialized guidance. Again, it comes from internal resonance mapping technology, which is a very advanced technology. Would you talk about that for a minute?
Yes, because the multidimensional field scan is really the first step. And then people may, not always, but there's usually a couple of optimal timelines. And that's when people come back and say, well, how do I get there? And this is the beauty of really what's been opening up for me. And you've said, you know, I've been a seeker, a searcher all my life. And it's just beautiful, the unfolding right back to when I was sharing that, you know, I met you, but you actually met my mother over 30 years ago and she kept a manual. And then when I met you, it was like, bing, 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 something I need to learn here. And, just the trajectory. And you know where I was at that time. I was still very much seeking and searching what's next, what's next. So I've always pushed those boundaries, whether it's firewalking. I even went on a program to learn to walk on water. Did I succeed? No, I sunk every single time. But when the field scans show potential optimal timelines, obviously people's question is, great, how do I get there? And the field scans often show certain trajectories. But my question is, okay, how can I support people to do that? Which helped me develop what I call mastery mapping frequency technology. Now, this technology is not a device or a machine. And let's face it, there's a lot of bioresonance devices and machines out there these days, and some of them are very, very good. So what I have come up with is I'm able to get your baseline signature frequency right now. So think of it like, because of your frequency that you emit, and we all know we have a huge electromagnetic field, and I think we know that we emit light, and then there's the phantom DNA effect, which shows that we leave an imprint everywhere we're going. So wherever you're sitting now, if you get up off that chair, there's an imprint of you left in that chair for quite some time. Doesn't that make you think, if you go to a therapist and who's been the person before you in that seat? I do as well. It's like, get that sage out, clear the space. So the baseline signature frequency that you emit creates the playground, the reality that you're experiencing right now. And that playground lets in certain experiences, certain people, certain events, certain situations, some of which you like and some which may be a problem. Okay, some situations that keep happening, maybe it's where you find yourself on a loop. And so if you're continually emitting that frequency, that's all that can come into that playground, because that's what resonates with your frequency. So then I get the optimal baseline signature frequency of your optimal timeline. And there'll be a gap. So this is your baseline signature frequency. This is the signature frequency of your optimal timeline. Now, of course, all we're going to think is, great, Carol, slap me in there. But you can't just slap people in there, because else it would be like if any of you have experienced plant medicine, then you'll know that it catapults you into different frequencies, and you see different things and you experience different things, and it's fantastic. But you're all over the shop. You can't hold it, because when you come back, you go back to your baseline signature frequency. Some people start to move, but a lot of people stay here and they don't integrate. So what happens is, excuse my language, the same shit comes back. They dip again. So they go for another plant medicine experience. And so it becomes the next addiction. So what we need to do is incrementally entrain you to that new optimal timeline frequency, which means you either expand this playground or you reject that playground and you create a new playground, which means certain people, certain situations, certain events do not resonate with these frequencies. Therefore, those situations that you had here cannot touch you. It's a new playground that you're playing in. Now, once it's not just tipping them, it's in training to them. And I found that as I move people closer and closer, there gets a kind of like tipping point where you no longer have to do very much, because it's like the frequencies want to meet you. It's like you become that magnet. Now, here's the second part, because people say, yay, I'm entrained to that new frequency, but I don't see anything change in my outside world. And that's because we live in a time-space reality where there's a delay between having a thought, emotion, or an idea and it materializing in the outside world, which can be frustrating at times, but if you think about it, is actually very useful. Because if you thought something and you manifested it instantly, you'd soon go, oops, I didn't mean that. Oops, no, not that, not that. You'd soon tidy up your thoughts. And I think there's a wonderful book, Phil, that we've often spoken about called The Master Key, that really encourages you to clean up your thinking and have that ability to focus. So I'm also able to find the time delay, the time lag in training to a frequency and how long you'll start to see and what you'll start to see materialize in your outer realm. So an example of this is one of my clients is in that liminal space. I call it liminal. You can also think of it as superposition, where superposition links with the observer effect. When you observe a reality, you collapse it into your material form. But there are many different options, many different timelines open to you. So when you're in that liminal space, it's very uncomfortable. It's like you don't resonate with your old friends, the old situations, but you're not quite in that new timeline. So we're able to assess what that time gap is between entrainment and it materializing, and also marker points for you. And me being, as you know, Phil, the impatient person that I am, my question is, how can you reduce that timeline? And of course, the cleaner you are in terms of a connection, your DNA, and being in that entrained state and not letting situations or events knock you off balance, then the quicker it can manifest. So let me just recap. I get the baseline signature frequency, the playground you're playing in right now. And then your multidimensional field scan will have shown your optimal timelines. You pick one, I get the baseline signature frequency of the optimal timeline, and then we entrain you to that new frequency, which changes the playground that you play in. And let me tell you, it's phenomenal. It's exciting. And this is why I keep telling people I'm like a child in a sweet shop, a candy store, because of my curious nature. I just find new questions to ask. And these field scans, the work in the multidimensional fields is just so exciting. And it's such a gift to see people, my clients, make that shift and change trajectory. It's just I love it. And to see the shifts in my own life as well.
Well, this is why you're getting these amazing results. You know, people like us, we ask them for these things. You ask them, and when you ask them, I think it's people are just it's much more impressive when you ask them than when we ask them. But you know,
My English accent.
what are what are the indicators if you're wondering whether you're being entangled in outdated or outmoded timelines or timelines that are just with no connection? Or there are subtle or even more overt indicators that you are living in an outdated or outmoded timeline?
I
Is
think
this
most
something that
people
you
feel
pick
that.
up?
Yeah, I think most people feel that kind of like disconnect or feel that they're just on a loop. It's like the people who are in relationships and they feel that, they got out of one bad relationship, the
Right.
next one looks different, but it's actually the same person in a different disguise. Or that what they're doing no longer resonates with them. And I've had that too. I am a master trainer of NLP, timeline therapy, hypnosis. I was running NLP certification programs for over 20 years very successfully. And I enjoyed them. And I still would enjoy them if I was running them, except for me, there's always more. And so I find a lot of people who come to me and say, I've been doing this for a long time, and I know there's more, and yet I don't know what it is yet. And that's when we normally just go for a tarot reading, a clairvoyant reading. And yet this opens up the field because I think most of us know that we're here on purpose, and particularly people listening into conscious conversations. We don't want the the fluffy, love, light, and clueless. Sorry
Right.
about that. We want something,
Yeah.
that's a little bit more tangible.
Right.
We want to really make a difference and see the picture from a bigger purpose. We're seeing beyond the physical form because we all know a lot of what's going on in the physical world is a shit show. And again, excuse my language, but let's face it. So, do you get yourself embroiled in that and get upset? Or do you rise above and start creating a playground where you're making a difference? And this is where you start opening up to new possibilities. So, as I said, a lot of my clients are people who are frustrated. They're in the same loops. They're very in their head. And let me tell you, as a person who was very in my head, and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking I was doing the work, and realizing that I wasn't embodied, and that was disconnecting me from a whole big, vast universe of understanding. So, I was very into reading, going on courses, making notes, and not being. And it used to frustrate me when people say you're so busy doing and not being. But I see that in people and a lot of my clients. So to me, if I can fast track them and give them the bigger picture, but bring that down to something tangible, particularly in terms of simple little things that they can do every day, that they will start
Mm.
seeing this is going to happen. You'll start seeing that. You'll start being more creative. Then that's actually beautiful. And my own trajectory, I've been into extremes. As you said, Phil, I'm a master firewalk instructor because very quickly it shifts people from that's impossible to possible. Because let's face it, by the age of 35, we're heavily programmed, conditioned, and our neurons are wired and fired in a way that when we come to any experience, it's like, been there, done that, got the mug, the hat, the t-shirt. How do you ever learn anything new? And so when I take people through experiences that they've never done before and they've been told that's dangerous, you've been conditioned and programmed, touch fire, you will burn. And yet they walk across those coals completely unharmed. It begs the question, if I can do that, what else can I do in my life? And if I can do that, what else have I been taught and told that's not true?
Yeah. I tell you, firewalking was a snap. It was really challenging to look at your true reflection in a mirror. Unless the mirrors we look at is really wrong. It's in a cosmetic mirror shifts it. Most people don't even recognize themselves looking at themselves in a true mirror. That's why I think this work is so important. And NLP is as effective as it is and still can be, and still broached timeline. There was NLP that evolved into timeline therapy. I remember from a long time ago, but it didn't address and the hidden initiations. It didn't address your 12 major components to doing the scan. It's a very, very, it's a truly holistic approach, how these elements play with each other, which leads us to getting into the multidimensional intelligence, what that's about, and what quantum morphogenetic science, what that addresses, and why this is all connected in your journey, and I think in other people's journey. It's a really amazing example on how you really have to, like you say in your description, it's you don't come to it. It comes forward to meet you, you know, which is really, it's very, very profound. So let's talk about multidimensional intelligence for a minute, because that's very, very exciting. I couldn't put it down. It was an amazing, amazing book. I cannot wait till really this I think this is going to hit worldwide. I think there's been a place for this that hasn't been filled in a long, long, long time. People understanding this concept. So let's move from where we are now into the concept of multi-dimensional intelligence and this latest book. Okay?
Well, thank you, Phil, because you've written the afterword to my last book, which was this one, Reimagine You, Bioregenesis of the DNA Blueprint through Source Feeding. And as I said, source feeding is the breatharian path. It's also called pranic living. So it's learning to live without the need for solid physical food. It doesn't mean that you have to go without physical solid food, but you know that you don't need it, that you can nourish your body in other ways. And that was really my thesis for my studies in quantum morphogenetic physics. So obviously, I took that path myself, having been vegan and vegetarian for decades and decades. I went the next step. So in 2023, I went on a darkroom retreat and breatharian retreat with Jasmine, who's probably one of the most famous breatharians in the world. And I also went on another breatharian program where we also went through dry fasting for about 4 or 5 days. And that had a very strong protocol afterwards, which for 2 months we had no chewing. We only took liquids. And predominantly now I take liquids, diluted juice, diluted soup, maybe a cup of tea here and there, because I am British. So that was the basis, really, of my book that was published at the beginning of this year of 2025. And I thought that was it. I thought that was my book. And this is the beauty, really, of tidying up your DNA, because when you're living cleanly, you have more creativity. The higher senses open up, and your DNA is connected. As I said, it's multidimensional and it's connected to different senses and the much higher senses. So you need less sleep, which was good for this interview because it started at 5 a.m. for me. And creativity, intuition, more gifts open up. Now, I thought that book, as I said, was it. It came out at beginning of this year. And then in March, I was having a conversation with a friend, and multidimensional intelligence came in as a way maybe to explain quantum morphogenetic physics and science in a more simple way for people to understand. So I look at it as really taking people beyond the boundaries of who they believe themselves to be and opening up to new possibilities, and not possibilities simply just in this physical realm, but opening up to the enormous potential of who we really are physically, mentally, emotionally, and more importantly, spiritually, in that stronger connection to source and ourselves at the soul level, the oversoul, the avatar, the rishi, and the Bodea levels, all the way back up to source. Because only a small portion of consciousness can fit into this physical form. So wouldn't it make sense to be able to access all that information on different levels, which, as I said, the multidimensional field scans act as that memory, that awakening, that activation. You begin to remember who you truly are. So, Multidimensional Intelligence, the book, I actually wrote in the space of 1 month. I live in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, and so here we have the holy month of Ramadan. It changes every year, and this year it was in March. And I basically wrote the whole book in March. And you got an early version of that, Phil. And it's about to be published, in fact, in the next few weeks. So editing done, typesetting done, cover done. It's all about to be released. And I do feel it's a paradigm that people need to be aware of. Because if you think of IQ, intellectual intelligence, you think of EQ, emotional intelligence, they're all measurement tools, and we're tested. And even the person who created IQ said, we shouldn't be measured, because what it does is those continue to put us in a particular playground, into boundary conditions. So if you think about it, from the moment we're born, we're given a name, we're placed into religion, we're given a script and a set of beliefs. We're sent to school and taught a history that may or may not be true. And then we're tested on that history. And if we get it right, we have a supposedly high IQ. It's basically around memory and regurgitating information. And then if we get it wrong, then we're the dunce of the class, and that pattern, that belief can stay with us the rest of our lives. So emotional intelligence took it a little bit further with helping us see it's really about becoming more aware of ourselves, and I agree. However, I think now we're in an age where we need to remember our true cosmic heritage. I think anybody listening to Conscious Conversations is aware that, we are so much more than a physical form. And going back to what I said about your energetic field, your frequency, that photographic equipment that can take a photograph of where you are now, and it shows your energetic field and it shows you. But if you move and that equipment takes another picture of just the chair, your field is still sitting there. So that's evidence that we are energetic beings. So with multidimensional intelligence, it's helping people understand what it is. But as I said, the book is coded. It's an activation in its own right. And it also talks about timeline navigation as well. So I don't know, Apple TV have some incredible series. And when I do watch television, I like to watch programs that make you think. And there's some extraordinary series like whether it's Silo, whether it's Constellations, which talks about superposition really and the liminal space. Then there's Dark Matter, which is optimal timelines, which means every time, every moment you're making a decision, you're collapsing a timeline in. Now, the ability to be able to future pace and say, is that the reality? Is that the timeline that I want to collapse into my now? That's really what we need to be getting aligned to. So also one of my favorite chapters in the book is the final chapter, where I talk about certain archetypes. There's 5 archetypes. Now, there's no questionnaire to be, oh, I'm this archetype or I'm that archetype, because that is just, again, placing you in a box. And the multidimensional realm is, the symbol that comes to mind is the spiral. So it's ever evolving. There's always more. And if you think about it, that's the universe that we live in. Everything's either growing or dying. And I know which side of the equation I want to be on. So the last chapter has the seer archetype, the tuner, the navigator, the transmitter, and the architect. Not as a way to say, oh, I'm one of these or I'm not, but more to get you thinking, to get the thought and the idea of being a seer. So you talk in the afterword, and in the book I talk about those, I never know how to pronounce this, it's those dicyanin glasses. The simple name for them is aura glasses. And these are mine. I love them because particularly when I go hiking, when you wear them, you start to see the world in totally different colors. And the longer you wear them, they entrain your eyes to see more. And so the seer is somebody who sees beyond the 5 senses. The tuner would be, if you think about it, we only hear a very narrow bandwidth of information. But to start hearing beyond what we normally hear. So rather than just listen to the beautiful song that Susie played at the beginning, hearing the frequency behind that, the beautiful intention, the heart that was put into that song, that it wasn't just words on a piece of paper and some music that she was strumming along to. Her energy was in that and connecting with that. And so also when you go out being the architect and of timelines, I'm thinking of that wonderful movie with what was that one where they had the little spinning one with Leonardo DiCaprio, where they're going into dreams and creating worlds, creating worlds. You know the movie I mean. I'll remember the name in a minute. It was just brilliant. But again,
Inception.
being Inception, love, love, love that movie. There's so many layers to it, as there are in the multidimensional fields. But also going back to when you're out and about with other people, remembering that you emit a frequency. And this is where it comes into leadership and everything, being coherent, being in harmony. So if I hum a note like ah, and I ask all of you to do the same, it may take a second or two, but after a few moments of going ah, it may at first sound all over the place, but all of a sudden you'll get into the same note as me and we'll go into resonance. So it's going into resonance and remembering that when you meet other people, your energy impacts them. All organisms read energy, but as human beings, we've got exceptionally lazy. But we do know when we walk into a room, we go, "Ooh, this is a bit off here." Or you meet someone and think, "God, I really resonate with them." So now it's about having more awareness of how you impact the field around you simply by your presence. And I remember one person I knew who'd recently activated his gifts of clairvoyance, and he was able to see if things were off in terms of people's energy or if there was disease there. But he found that if he went up to people and said, "Oh, there's something wrong with your kidneys or your lungs," they'd basically tell him where to go. You know, you can't go up to people like that. But what you can do is be aware of the energy, the imprint, the thoughts that you are imprinting. And so maybe he doesn't say things to so many people these days, but he maybe imprints that thought and he'll never know. But maybe that person later thought, I think something's a little bit off with my kidneys. I'm just going to go to the doctor. I'm just going to check in and see what's happening there. So again, multidimensional intelligence is not just for you and the awareness that, something in my body feels a little bit off, or something feels really in tune here, or let me sit in stillness, silence, solitude, or stasis, and start creating, start being an architect. And again, this is where the multidimensional field scans also come in because they can help you direct what you want to birth and architect into the world. And by the way, just saying one more thing about the field scans, I've been extraordinarily blessed with the people who have had the field scans. You know, one of my dear, dear friends is such an incredible shaman, John Paul Eagleheart, and such a pleasure to mirror that which was in his field. But you know, wherever we are in life, no matter the sacred work that we do, it's always good to remember and remind ourselves, as Phil said, remember, bring ourselves back together because we can get off track so easily. But we all have extraordinary gifts and talents, as does my fantastic friend, Phil Gruber, one of the most wisest, most intelligent minds of information that you can possibly find. Really, there's just so many levels, so much depth
Oh,
there.
Carol, you're such a truth teller. And Matt,
Absolutely.
it's time for questions and answers. Matt, let's have it. First
Yes.
question from
You know,
Matt.
it's so incredible what you're saying about multidimensional intelligence, and it's absolutely so essential for human evolution today. And I have a question a little bit about that. You describe yourself as live transformation. So what does that mean, in practice, and how does that differ from traditional motivational speaking and getting into the world? information into the world.
Matt, it's exactly what I've been talking about. So, yes, people could say, oh, she's just a motivational speaker. Up I go on stage. And there's more. Because when you're on stage, obviously, my goal is always to switch on a few light bulbs that encourage people, because you usually only get anywhere from 30 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe an hour and a half if you're really lucky. So, how can you make an impact? Well, this is where those archetypes of the seer, the tuner, the transmitter, the navigator, and the architect come in. So on stage, I make sure that I come fully to the table, so to speak, to the stage, so that I am emitting specific frequencies. So there's frequencies behind the words that I'm saying, my presence, the energetic field that I am emitting, such that they land in a different way. Because remember, we can impact overtly with what we say, but from a frequency base, we can impact people overtly, very positively, and very powerfully. So just as I said, you can walk by somebody and they don't know, but they suddenly feel, oh, I just feel good.
Mhm.
And isn't that our role to lift, to get people to see who they truly are from the clutter, the distortions, the mass conditioning, the programming, from the playground that they're operating from, and see the possibilities that exist. So that's when I say transforming, it's not always from the overt way, it's covertly from an energetic level and how your message lands. So I'm very aware when I'm on stage, when I'm working with people, whether it's one-on-one or in groups and crowds. I have an event to go to later this morning, and I'll be with people. Honestly, I'm a bit of a recluse and introvert because when you're playing in the multidimensional fields, I'm the kid in the candy store. There's so much there. But when I do go out, I'm very aware of, what energy I want to transmit and being that architect and transmitter to lift the energy in a place. And to me,
You're an
I feel
incredible
that
lifter of that energy. And speaking of that, if you could embed one frequency or truth into the collective consciousness right now, what would it be and why?
I love those questions. It reminds me of one of the quotes I always used to use. It's around mastery. The path to mastery means letting go of everything in your life that represents mediocrity. Are you ready to do that? And most people will say, yay. But it comes back to when you ask people, do they want to change? Yes. Are they prepared to do the work? No. And that's the reason I said I'm not a do to person, I'm a do with. And I've always been fascinated by the masters, the superhumans, the gurus. Matt, there's a series of books that I've loved called the Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. They were written
Absolutely.
in 1924, Baird T. Spalding. And as you know, they cite the adventures of a group of 11 scientists who traveled to meet and spend time with the masters. And they witnessed all sorts of phenomena, walking on water, manifesting huge feasts and banquets from nothing, teleportation, all sorts of things. And my question has always been, if they can do it, why can't I?
Mm.
So for me, what I would leave the message for mankind is the superhumans, the masters, the gurus, they actually showed us what's possible. Now it's our time to remember.
Beautiful words of wisdom. Appreciate those.
Well,
Thank you.
not so far in the far-flung future, I would like to see your books held in the same esteem. I think they're praiseworthy, and I think you're doing an amazing job. We're all doing our part, and I think I've got nothing but praise for you and really and the work that you're doing. You know, although spoon bending, I've never seen anyone bend a spoon back to its original
Oh,
point. And
I can spoon bend. Spoon
you want
bending
to
is
know
actually one of
something?
the easiest things. I haven't got a spoon here. I was just looking, what can I bend? What can I bend? What's this?
This is while we're on the subject. You know, these are my headphones, right? And every day I take all the knots out and I wrap them up and I put them in my bag. The next day, they're all knotted up again. How does this happen? Does it happen? Should I get a time lapse camera? How does it knot itself when I've unknotted it the night before, put it in a bag, and it gets these really complex knots? How does this
And
happen?
doesn't that just show you that when we're sleeping, um, we're not maybe not aware of ourselves in this physical form, and we are very busy. We are very busy. And this could be, what are you doing? Lucid dreaming. To me, when you have a bad dream, what's the beauty with lucid dreaming is becoming aware that you're in the dream. And then it's like, I don't like the trajectory of this. Let me put on my Superwoman outfit and slay that dragon and knock that beast out the way. You start, getting back in the driver's seat. So maybe at night you're tying yourself in knots, Phil.
Yeah, that could be true. I was thinking when you talked about the therapist couch or the therapist chair. My God, just imagine being one of the last patients of the day. You sit on that chair and you feel like you're sitting on all the people that came before.
I know, and you wonder why you feel like shit when you leave
No
the
wonder
therapist. You're
you
not just
can't get
taking
a
on your own
straight
shit,
thought
you've got
out.
everybody else's. Phil, may I quickly bring up my slides because I just want,
Of
if anybody
course.
wants to take a screenshot,
Absolutely.
just a couple of things just to sort of share here. So, oops, has that come up?
There you go.
So this is my book that will be due out soon. So if you want to take a screenshot, it's called Multidimensional Intelligence, Activating a Higher Blueprint for Human Evolution. It's not yet on Amazon, but literally in the next couple of days, we've already got the ISBN numbers. It will be up and ready for pre-order. By the end of the month, it will be out. And then I also wanted to give you the link to the multidimensional field scans because as I spoke about them, but some people may want to know more about them, read about them. And the good news is I don't need, you don't need to book an appointment with me because basically you fill in a questionnaire and from the questionnaire I get the information and I do the field scan from that information. It's sent to you. You do have the option if you wish to book a pre-call with me on Zoom, and you do have an option to book a call with me after you've received your scan if you want to go through it with me. But I do not need to be present with you to do the scan. So there's a QR code there, and then at the bottom, there's also the website link. So it's multi-dimensionalintelligence.com/ multidimensional field scan. But the easiest is probably the getting the QR code. So I just wanted to pop those up very quickly rather than put it in the chat box.
Oh, that was great. Thank you so much, Carol. We'll have to have
My
you
pleasure, my
on again.
absolute pleasure.
We'll have to have you on again early next year. I also want to have some panels where
Oh, that would
a
be
few of my
fantastic.
favorite people at a pop and just have some sort of mini panels. I know, Matt, we've talked about this every so often. Anyway, I want to thank you again, Carol. Thanks, Matt, Suze, Kathy, Elaine, Fallon. I think we're having Doug back. We're having Doug and you back on November 13th. correct? I think you and Doug, Quantum Doug, back on the 13th. We'll also have
And
you on.
Carol, thanks for teaching everyone to firewalk and to shift, to get to
Yeah,
break through and to catalyze those breakthroughs. It's incredible.
yeah. Now we have to
My
try. Now we have to try one with dry ice. Now that's a challenge. Trying it with dry ice. Okay. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you from us here at Cosmic Conversations and the Greater Can Network. You know, Conscious Awareness Network. We'll see you next Tuesday, or was it Wednesday or Thursday? We'll certainly see you here next Thursday. We have Joanna Kajua, who I'd never heard of before a few weeks ago, but I know it's going to be fun. I know it's going to be a good one. I can't remember anything about it right now, except it's going to be a great. It's going to be a great cosmic conversation. How can it not? We are cosmic, multidimensional beings. How could it not be anything but? Am I right, Carol? Ms. Talbot, PhD.
who we are, getting back to our true cosmic blueprint.
That's right. Thank you again. Much love, everybody, and we will see you next week. Thanks again,
Bye-bye.
Carol. Amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Carol.